Well guys, welcome back to the channel. Here in the local retailer trying to get some products for trout fishing. My fishing line took a crap on me, so I got to get some fishing line, and I want to take a peek around and see if I can find some other crap. It's like anything else, a lot of product. I think I'm gonna get me some of these, maybe get me some mealworms. How's that sound? Get some mealworms. This looks interesting. I was just talking to a fellow about these. He said he's been hammering them pretty good with this. So sometimes what happens is you get yourself into a situation, and I don't know if you can see this in this reel. I got my spinning one here, and this thing is just a mess. And the reason this is a mess is because the string or the line, we'll call it line. We won't call it string. We'll call it line. The line is old, and it's been out in the sun, and it's been, out in the elements for some time. I know it's been probably 4 or 5 years, and then since I've changed this over, and with the type of lure that I had on it, I had a rooster tail on it, and it did get backlash off of it when I casted it. It had a little too much on it, and it just rode a little too far out there. The tension might have not been at the perfect tension that it needed to be, and it just kept on going, and the reel just wouldn't keep up with it, so it just kind of made it a bird's nest. So I'm going to show you kind of how we can either since I know I'm going to be taking this off, I'm going to take it all off today, or 2, if something like this would happen, just give you a small idea how you can get these things to come undone. But since I'm not going to be spending a lot of time trying to get the bird's nest out, as you guys can see in this, because I switched angles now, as you can see how this is all bird's nested up in there. And you just kind of take, if you're going to reset this, like I was saying, 25, 30 foot, and you can just put it back on, but you kind of just let it fall in its natural state. Now see how that right there, see how that all just come out of there? I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but see how that all just come off in its natural state, and you just let it fall. And now we're coming into where it's doubled over, because this was a really bad bird's nest in this one. But you just kind of keep pulling it off until it just comes into its natural state, and eventually this will pick up on itself, is what it is going to do. And then you can put it, because what you're doing is you're just re-threading, and as we're taking it off, it's just going layer by layer, because right now I got 3 of them that are coming off at the same time. But you stay with the top one and just let that feather itself down in, because the other 2 are just hanging in there because of the way it came. And eventually, in this kind of bird's nest, as you can see, it's playing in itself, and you just keep it coming. And like I said, because I know I'm going to be taking this off, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. But at this point, it would wind up catching up to itself. And then you would have all that excess sitting on the ground, and you just kind of take and push your bail back over, and it'll just reel back on. But in this case today, I'm not going to be playing with all that, so I'm going to take all 3 of them, and see, I'm back to just 1 now. I got the line off now, but if you look at this line now that I'm done, just look at the texture of how this line looks, and it's just really, you want to keep them out of the sun. This was in the sun, and then it was in all kinds of water. and then it was, you know, being drug across rocks and all kinds of debris on the bottom of the river and lakes and stuff. Fish hitting it. I've even had bats hit it at night when I'm fishing off the lake and they're doing stuff. So this stuff is pretty old, and you can tell by looking at it that, I mean, when I was pulling some of it off, I mean, it was just ripping and tearing. It's been used and abused, and that's why it's the way it is. So now that I got that off, I'm going to get ready to put the new stuff on, the new mono. And I'm going to put 6-pound test on there, and I'll show you how I put that on there. If you look at the way that this spool goes, it goes counterclockwise. You need to get your line to do the same thing. So when you get your new line, what you do is you don't know if it's paper up or paper down. So what you do is you take some of the line off, and you have to see which way. If you might not be able to see it right now, but it's coming off from its natural way right now, spinning around. So you got to get it to go counterclockwise, just like it is on the spool. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is it's all going to bird's nest again, and it's all going to be just a pain in the butt for you. So in this particular spool, it's going to be paper up. The most important thing of tying your knot is making sure that it's tight against your spool. Some people still use, you got to make sure your bail is open too. That's a key, is making sure your bail's open. As long as you get it on there and it stays and it don't slip, that's the key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a slip knot. I'm going to do the X that I normally would do on this, and I'm going to roll this over 5 times. I do the X method, tie her off, roll back through, do my double 5 knot, and slip her down on there for it, back up through. Five off the original. I do the same thing when I'm going, when I do my catfish line. 1, 2, 3. You could do 3, 4, whatever you wanted to do. Bring her back up through. Slide her up to your main point, just the same as a slip knot. Push her up in there. Make sure your line is good and tight, because that's where she's going to drag if you don't have her against the reel when you're doing it. Put her in place. Now that I got my knot in there, I got a pretty nice little tag there. That's what they call the longer end, is the tag off the main. And I usually like to use fingernail clippers. I don't cut it quite against the spool itself, because if anything would slip, you don't want it falling out. So I kind of come off of it just a tiny bit. Make sure you're cutting the right line too, so separate the two. About 1/4 inch in case it would slip. Throw that on the ground for right now. And then, like I said, you have that come off. We know we got everything right because it was paper up on this. You want to hold that up just a little bit, put some tension on it, make sure your drag is set properly on your reel. You don't want it too much, you don't want it too little. You want it just about where it is for just a little bit when you're pulling off. Flip your bail over, and as that string comes off that line comes off your spool, it should go in its natural state. Don't overdo it. Don't reel too fast, and just let it do its natural state and see how she plays out. looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably pull out about another 10 foot. Now that I'm done doing everything, I'm cleaning up my mess. You want to make sure you store your excess line properly. Do yourself a favor, put it back in the box it came in and store it where the sun isn't, because the sun will destroy this. As always, I hope you guys liked the video. Like and subscribe. We're going to be starting a Facebook page soon, so follow us on Facebook. Tell all your friends and your family, and we just want to thank you guys for supporting us and watching. And as always, keep your eyes peeled and have a good time with your family. And fathers, your children are the next generation. So always remember, teach them what you know.